Over the weekend, an incident took place. If I were using polite media language, I would call it a racially charged incident that involved the usage of racial slurs and ensuing violence. There's been many discussions about how the effects of fully unrestricted free speech when it comes from a reactionary place can affect the free speech of a marginalized group. I am not here to have that discussion. Instead, I want to look at what took place over the weekend and use this as an opportunity to discuss the violence of slurs and the retaliation that they can elicit. So, a quick recap of the incident that inspired this video. Apparently, a 77-year-old white man received poor service in a Dunkin' Donuts drive-thru and opted to enter the store and lodge a complaint with the management. And by lodge a complaint, I mean that he walked into the store and went on a shouting tirade laden with profanity and racial slurs. Other employees who witnessed the exchange state that he had repeatedly called the young black store manager a fairly infamous racial slur. This transaction ended with the employee punching the old man, knocking him down. It is then reported that the elderly patron hit the ground, sustaining injuries to his skull, which later proved to be fatal. So now the store manager is facing a charge of aggravated manslaughter of a person over 65. At time of writing, he was released on bond, and his continued employment status with Dunkin' Donuts is unknown. Now, I will at no point justify lethal force as an appropriate response to racial slurs. I just don't consider it the most efficient way to combat white supremacy. If we're going to achieve black liberation, we'll need to save our punching for the systems of white supremacy as a whole. No point in getting a broken hand messing with the pawns. While I was looking over the responses to the story, I saw a comment that resonated with me. One person had stated, "He fell for the trap." He fell for the trap. Yeah, I gotta say that sounds about right. I've worked in various retail service settings for the last 10 years, and yeah, I've had people spew racial epithets in my face with the utmost venom, and most of the time I took no action other than to politely request that they leave again, and in extreme circumstances, call the police, just as company policy dictates. I should specify that these outcomes were while I worked in more corporate-friendly environments. While I worked as a bouncer, slurs were handled a bit more like this. Oh! Yeah! This is great research, but in no way do I find that satisfying or entertaining. Who knew being bigoted in public was hazardous to your health? But yeah, I agree with the sentiment. Many a racist white person will happily risk their own physical well-being in a public setting by loudly using slurs or just being openly bigoted, and then playing the victim once the consequences of their actions have given them a concussion. After all, the use of racial slurs are considered a non-violent act by the legal establishment, and there are generally mild repercussions for using them. At best, we could expect some loss of income when they get fired from their job, or a loss of reputation. Nobody is going to jail, though, for calling black people slurs. But you better believe that the person using the slurs will be quick to throw on an innocent face and find their nearest friendly neighborhood stormtrooper to hear their cries of woe. I give you Exhibit B. So, this white woman saw fit to enter a picket line at a protest and snatch a sign from the hands of a demonstrator, before proceeding to catch all of said hands. I swear to you that I derive no satisfaction whatsoever from these videos. This is purely for research purposes. This clip in particular doesn't involve a slur so much as general caucasity and someone thinking that they have the right to snatch something out of your hands. But I use it to demonstrate a point. Look what happened next. There it is. Do you see how quickly that fire went out when she had a sympathetic ear? And that's the sad truth that exists in the minds of every black person navigating through this world. Whenever confronted by a white racist going mask off, in our mind, we have to weigh the outcomes and consider whether or not it's worth it to take any action at all. In a retail setting, it's generally expected that there will be no action taken against customers for shooting off at the mouth, even if it is reported to management. One of the nasty downsides of capitalism is that you are expected to just shrug off verbal abuse from customers as part of the job. This became very clear a couple of years back when Popeyes released a very popular chicken sandwich, and their stores became overwhelmed with rude, impatient patrons. It should be noted that Popeyes does tend to be rather popular in black neighborhoods, and they often have black employees, and wouldn't you know it, the Karens were out in full form.
Employees told the woman to leave the restaurant, and they say the customer then used the N-word.
Hey, you in the wrong place saying the N-word, though.
Oh,
So, as you see, in Exhibit C, clearly this employee was pushed to their breaking point. So much so that he was willing to lose his job and face legal repercussions, potentially even jail time. Why? Clearly, there will be a disproportionate response in favor of the person using the slur against the person who reacts to the slur with violence. So why react? Because words are never just words. Words have meaning. Words have history. Words have context. They can have an implied message beyond what is being said out loud. By choosing to use certain words as an insult, when you are angry or agitated, you are putting the force of that word's painful history behind your statement, and you are directing it at the target of your slur. Some old white lady choosing to use the same language that people used before they would hang us from trees or beat us with whips is never an accident. It's not a slip-up, and it's not a mistake. It is a calculated attack on our personhood. Using such a charged slur against someone is actively dehumanizing your target. And the fact that you know you will probably not see any legal or societal consequences makes it all the more insidious. This is weaponized privilege. I'd like to close by going back to the free speech element that I had referenced in the beginning and offer another disclaimer by stating that at no point have I advocated for the state to police language. I don't think that issues related to speech are something that you can legislate away. At least not most of them. So, after our short discussion here, you might be wondering if you can say the N-word. Well, sure you can. There is nothing I can do to stop you.